afternoon again. It's David Thomas, archivist at the Cornwall Record Office at Truro. Welcome to our further session of David's dazzling documents. The sun has come out a bit and it's a lovely afternoon here in Truro. Today I'm going to talk to you a bit about a red book, which we can see on the table in front of me. What is a red book? Well, it goes right back to the 18th century when a man called Humphrey Repton, who was a leading garden designer and landscape gardener in late 18th century, early 19th century UK, decided to adapt his skills as a drawer and a sketcher and make it a business. And there was a great sort of gap in landscape gardening after the famous Lancelot or Capability Brown had died in 1783. And this role was taken over by Humphrey Repton. So on the table we have our red book, although it has actually been rebound, and let's have a look and see what we have got. In fact, it is Humphrey Repton's designs for the landscaping and reshaping of the house and the gardens at Treberthenwick House in the parish of Cornwall near Tregony. And he visited Treberthenwick in October 1792, and in March of 1793 he produced his designs, which these books are, to adapt and alter the gardens at Treberthenwick. And rather nicely, inside the front cover of the volume, we have Humphrey Repton's business card, which he gave out and often pasted in his red books and the accompanying paperwork. And here in Treberthenwick, he's working for a local MP, one of the Cornish gentry families called Gregor, and in this case Francis Gregor, to deal with what he thought would be best recommendations for Treberthenwick House. And here we have the outline plan of Treberthenwick House as it was at the time in 1792. And this is, of course, is the same decade as Pole Dart, which you've been seeing on your Sunday night televisions at 9 o'clock, so the mid-1790s. It's that sort of era and what's actually going on. And as we turn through the book, we can see Repton's designs. And the key thing about his work was that you had little vignettes of what the houses and what the gardens looked like as existing, and then what he proposed. So if we turn it very carefully, we can see what he proposed. And in this case, you had two side pavilions or wings. And in fact, these weren't built until much later, these two wings, until the 1830s. And in fact, were removed from Treberthenwick as late as 1950. And the house now has assumed its very severe Georgian design. Just turning on, we can see Humphrey's recommendations. And he says quite nicely, the powerful effect of the west winds in Cornwall seems at first sight a sufficient reason for the nakedness of the hills, but it is also to be accounted for by plantations having been made rather with a view to profit than to beauty, and therefore the valleys are frequently choked with trees while the hills remain neglected. You have to think about trees, and we'll come back to that in a moment. He talks about the house and what he would like to do to it. And then we have a wonderful picture of the house as existing in October 1792 with this rather wall or hedge, which he said, I will sweep away and leave it to look just like this. Take away some of the trees, some of the clutter. And this was his vision of what Treberthenwick House would actually go on to look like. And indeed, this wall or hedge was removed later on. And again, his proposals, the views from the house, and he talks about a view from the house eastward, and we have the plan showing again what it looked like in the autumn of 1792. And the great convention in many 18th century formal gardens was to have long avenues of trees leading through vistas. Repton was not of the opinion that these were profitable, and he didn't like them because he said it was a bit of a same. Everywhere you went, you had these avenues. So what he proposed was to take it away and just have little clumps of trees, giving a more natural view, and in this case of the town of Tregony further over, and you can see the tower of St Cubis Church. He liked to focus in on church towers, things in the landscape that perform foci for the landscape. And we have some hayricks, we have some sheep, and various other objects there. And he also altered the roads in the estate, and he made plans for lodges which would be at the entrance gates. There were two designs for lodges. Here we see a beautiful lodge with the entrance and the ground plan of it. And another scheme he had for one of the other lodges was actually to perform a second one, which in fact was never actually built. And then he also had this idea of, again, sweeping away these planted avenues of trees and just to reveal the view of the house and give it a more prominent aspect in the landscape. With this red book, there are also some drawings of other proposals for the house, and a good archivist will always be a detective and look at the watermarks on the paper. The watermarks on the paper on these designs is actually dated 1811. It's rather later. I think these are the plans for some of the work that was brought to fruition in the 1830s. I love the way these gentry and these landscape architects thought that they could just sweep things away and bring things to the way they liked them. They were immensely wealthy, immensely powerful. With Repton, he did his red books and he made suggestions. It was up to others to follow out his recommendations. With Capability Brown, he actually supervised the work, and that was the difference between the two. A fascinating aspect of Cornish great house, gardening and landscape history.